I've spent over 7 years teaching people how to make all sorts of crazy metal vocal noises like this. And this is just a short list of things that I've noticed people tend to do wrong, or at least have some misconceptions about. And I want you to check to see if you have any of these, or if you're doing any of these, so that you can be aware of them and you can fix them. So let's do it. This first one has a huge impact on the comfort and the control that a lot of people have on their screams, and it is confusing volume for projection. Now, I can't really blame anybody for that. I mean, these are called metal screams. That's what people tend to call them anyway. And that gives us the idea that they all should be really loud and really forceful, but then also they should be balanced and not too much work. So where's the middle ground exactly? So put simply, volume is a measure of the intensity or the loudness of a sound as we perceive it. This seems really obvious. It's like, okay, Mark, tell us something we don't know. But this very fact can actually cause, in my experience, one very specific point of confusion amongst new vocalists. And it may be a point of confusion that you have as well. Projection is something that we do. It's a physical action, and that physical action is maintaining balance in our voice. When I talk about balance, what I mean is the airflow that we have, the air pressure, right? Because we're moving air past tissues that are lightly or sometimes very actively restricting that airflow. And then we utilize the shape of the vocal tract to gain a lot of the volume from resonance, from the way that the sound waves are going to bounce around inside of our mouth against each other and then exit. And that's the main point of confusion that a lot of new metal vocalists have. It's that volume is a control mechanism, right? It's not. Volume is how we perceive something. We don't do volume. My muscles can't make volume happen. Volume is the result of something. And so when you try to control your scream with volume, what you're doing is you're kind of flying blind. You're just closing your eyes and saying, okay, this is loud, so it must be right. And obviously, that can be confusing because really loud screams done improperly, hot take, they can sound cool. They don't feel good. They're not sustainable, but they can sound awesome. The main solution to this at the ground level is to just get an understanding of what projection versus volume feels like. So follow after me. I want you to hold out a note. Any note, doesn't matter which one. Just keep it in your chest voice. Perfect. Take 2 fists, put them on your tummy. Keep your tummy very, very, very soft. And while you're holding that note, you're going to push in on your stomach. Notice what happened with your voice. Kind of cool, right? Kind of interesting. Well, our voice got louder whenever we pushed in on our abdominal muscles. Now, again, this isn't a solution to all of a sudden make you this big projecting vocalist, but it's a way to show you that your voice can get louder without the feeling of squeeze or press or push. We're basically showing our brain, hey, see, we can get some volume without having to put a lot of effort here. Now take your hands away and do this for me. Notice what happened every time we tossed our voice out there. Our abdominal muscles, your abdominal muscles, squeezed, they engaged. This allows us to relax and only use the effort necessary in our throat to get the volume that we need, again, by projection, utilizing our core muscles to create sound in a balanced way where the majority of the volume comes from the way that the sound waves are bouncing around in our vocal tract. Now, because you're very intuitive, you've probably already noticed the 3 control mechanisms that we have. Remember, I said projection is a technique based on balance. And that balance comes from each of these control mechanisms working together. The support muscles, the tissues that we use to vibrate and generate sound, and then again, the shape of the vocal tract to encourage the sound waves to bounce around in a way that we get a sound that we like. Now, thinking about all these control mechanisms can make your brain feel fried. Your working memory can only handle so much at once. And if we think about this as all sorts of individual disconnected pieces, we can get overloaded. We can short circuit. I encourage you to just walk around your house, remove every expectation you have, and just play with your voice. Be playful and see what feels like you're getting a lot of volume for low effort, and pay attention to what that sensation is. Pay attention to the sound, the big voluminous sound with the low effort feeling in your body. If you'd like to see me walk somebody through that process, check out my free course in the description below, How to Scream from Zero. It's all about doing just that. Mistake number 2, and this is a huge one, thinking that the diaphragm pushes. So often, when students come to me and they have the idea that they push with the diaphragm, they are doing all sorts of things that muscles are physically incapable of doing, thinking that they're doing good breath support. But in actuality, what's happened is they're just kind of flexing their muscles or doing like a weird belly dance, getting no results from that, and then offloading a ton of work onto their throat. So thinking that your diaphragm can push and then basing your support on that idea is almost always going to lead you to doing things that are inefficient with your core muscles. And inefficient breath support does cause pain and strain and vocal effort over time that is pretty easily avoidable. It's important to note that your support muscles are your core muscles, right? Your abdominals, your obliques, your lower back, even at times your rib muscles as well. And again, these are a lot of mechanisms. These are a lot of levers to think about. So instead, let me give you a very simple cue that will just show you what support feels like in a simple sense. So I was a little bit of a troublemaker in elementary school, not too much, but a little bit. And I did like to shoot the occasional spit wad, right? I would get a little straw from the cafeteria or bring one from home, right? And then I'd get, you know what a spit wad is, right? And then let me run that back. Let me show you something. And I want you to watch. I'm going to shoot a couple imaginary spit wads. I want you to watch my shoulders. I want you to watch my head. Here we go. If you don't have a straw, you can pretend you're spitting out some sunflower seeds. Now, you won't see it when you're standing, but if you're sitting, you'll notice you get a little bit of bounce. And that bounce should be paired with a feeling of really no muscular effort or press or push in your throat at all. You'll feel a release of the air pressure, but you're not going to feel these muscles squeezing. You're also going to notice a little bit of downward pressure on your pelvic floor, pushing out a fart, basically. Now, this is a very extreme, very staccato version of what your support muscles feel like when they're doing things. It doesn't always feel like every single syllable that you're screaming, you're going, right? It's not that intense, but this is a way to show you, these muscles do the work. These muscles don't have to. Interesting. And if you do have a scream or some distortion you can bark it out. Let's take it back to MySpace. False chord bark. Watch my shoulders. Watch my head. Woof, 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 woof. Mistake number 3 is one that I've seen a lot. There's been a huge uptick in it, and that is trying to solve or fix your screams with compression. Now, a lot of people are probably going to hear this point and think, no, Mark, compression is really important for screams. Compression is one of the most important things for a lot of different techniques. I'm not saying that compression isn't important. I'm saying just like volume, compression isn't really the control lever that we think it is. Here's something that we know. Some screams are loose. Some screams are more activated. And part of the way that these screams work is, in fact, by building up more air pressure and moving that air pressure through the supraglottal tissues that are doing more work to resist that airflow. It's important that we make a note here. These are the supraglottal tissues resisting the airflow, not the vocal folds themselves. And it's really easy to see how this works. Do a really loose lip bubble. Now, add more pressure. Air dump. We need to resist a little bit more. Okay, we've resisted, but now the sound has changed. So Mark, hold on. You just said that compression is not a good control mechanism, and yet you literally just showed how it makes a huge difference. This doesn't make sense. It does. Hang on. Now, while it is true that pressure is a word that we use to describe what happens to something between two opposing forces, those forces don't have to oppose. They don't actually have to be against each other. They can work together, and the best way to do it is to just feel it. Now, to play with a balance of pressure with distortion, you have to have distortion. So if you don't have any grit that you can make, false chord, fry, epiglottal, doesn't matter to me. Watch this for informational purposes, but without grit, you can't really play with the balance of pressure to create grit, but still, it'll be valuable. So let's find the sweet spot together. What you're going to do is you're going to take any scream or growl that you have. It doesn't matter to me. You're going to start low. You're going to start quiet. You're going to focus forward, and you're going to take a staccato approach. I'm going to start too quiet, but comfortable. I'm going to use this sound. Now I'm slowly using that sunflower seed or that spit wad sensation. I'm going to slowly lean in, press into this sound, only a touch, right? Only a touch at a time until I find the sound that I'm looking for. I want to hear the sound that I want and feel the lowest amount of effort. This is an efficient system. And it can be other screams too. It doesn't have to be a more quiet technique like that epiglottal gurgly sound that I just used. You can do something louder as well. Mistake number 4 is one that I guarantee you do. We all do it. Even I still do it. And that is tutorial doom scrolling. Now, I've already made a long form video on how I feel about metal vocal tutorials. Long story short, I'm not inherently against them, but they can never provide the full picture. This video, though, is more focused on how they're a mistake in your practice. If you only take away one thing from this video, take this. There's no tutorial out there, no matter how well made, that can stand in or sub in for you building a strong mind-body connection. When I say building a strong mind-body connection, what I mean is hearing the sound that you want and pairing it with the sensation in your body. I often call this a somatic anchor, something that we hear paired with a sensation repeated over and over again mindfully so that our body memorizes it. If the way you practice looks like making 2 or 3 little grunts and then watching a bunch more tutorials and then 2 or 3 little grunts and then watching a bunch of tutorials and then making 2 little grunts and then watching a bunch of tutorials, it might not be that the tutorials are bad. It might be, and by might I mean it definitely, is that you are not sitting with your body. You're not hanging out with your sensations, right? You're actually kind of avoiding them. Think about this. Imagine being on a date and you say 2 words to your date and then you scroll. And then you say 2 words to your date and then you scroll. And then you say 2 words to your date and then you scroll. Is there going to be a second date? Hell no. It might sound kind of weird, but your voice is part of your body. And we need to build a relationship with our body and our voice in order to control it, in order to use it, right? We have to be willing to sit with our voice in those uncomfortable, I mean emotionally uncomfortable moments where we're making mistakes, things aren't working, and solving them by referencing our own sensations rather than offloading the explanations to someone, honestly, like me on the internet. Watch your tutorials, save the ones that make the most sense, follow the creators that help you the most, but sometimes turn off TikTok, turn off Instagram, close YouTube, and pay attention to the feedback you get from your body and solve the problems with the feelings in your body. But Mark, that's really hard and I feel like I get nowhere. I used to pace around in the garage for 45 minutes a day for months, every day, 7 days a week, just making mistakes and trying to solve them on my own. I get it. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it's valuable. Okay, Mark, but that's really difficult, right? Like, how am I supposed to just make a sound and then fix it, right? Don't I need outside information? Yes, you do, but that outside information can come from you. Here's the solution. Record yourself practicing on your phone, in recording software, anywhere that you can, really. And when something works, save it, make a little voice memo, talk to yourself. I liked that sound because it was this, and it felt like this. Then listen back to your own notes. This is one of the most valuable things that you can do as a vocalist. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to what it says, and record yourself explaining those moments. And mistake number 5, it's a pretty big one. It's one I see all the time, and it's trying to learn high screams by starting with grit. Now, learning high screams doesn't have to be this huge, crazy, complicated thing, but it is more complex than just taking a mid scream, changing the shape of your mouth, and saying, boom, hey, there you have it, a high. And here's an example of what I mean. I wouldn't call this head voice, but I would call this head voice. It may not sound super good, it may not be sing-songy, but that ain't chest voice. And so you can see why it's confusing if somebody takes their scream, a mid, and they think, oh, I'll just change my mouth shape and get this. This does not exist in the same space as this. They're very different. One of them exists roughly where you talk. The other exists in a space that most people don't go naturally. It requires a very specific shape of the vocal tract, and doing that requires complex muscle coordination. It requires different muscle movements than you're used to. Now, that doesn't mean these muscle movements are hard. It just means they're not as natural for most people. So let me show you a quick way to sort of get into that space and a way that you can introduce the idea of doing high screams. I want you to make some monkey noises. I want you to feel really dumb. If you watched me and felt a little cringe in your soul, good. I want you to do the same and feel even more about yourself, because then you're probably doing it right. Okay, it doesn't really work that way, but you are going to feel super silly. One quick tip, don't think about going as high as you can. think about sounding mostly like a monkey, right? We don't want to overly analyze what we're doing because that'll generally cause you to squeeze up and tighten, right? Just do a monkey impression. Right? There you go. Now, once you're comfortable in this upper space, just kind of whisper it in a little bit. Now, once you're comfortable in this space, think about going up and down, slowly, smoothly. So instead of these little staccato pushes, we're getting comfortable with these sliding movements is a really good way to get more of these complex vocal movements that are pretty important for a lot of metal genres. Like if you're going to do something like then you have to be able to make those movements easily. So again, monkey noises, once you're comfortable, slide around with them. So that's it. Those are 5 of the most common mistakes that I have seen people making in my a little over 7 years of teaching people how to make all these crazy metal noises. If you're interested in that free course that just gives you some guidance in playing with your voice and seeing what sounds are natural for you, check it out in the description in the pinned comment below. And that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if any of these stuck out to you. Many thanks, much love. I'm out.